All right. Thanks for hanging out with another episode of the Bigfoot Society podcast live on YouTube. We got a few people hanging out with us already. I'm going to shout out a few comments we got. We got William Goebel says, "Oh, yes. All right. Thanks for hanging out." And we got Carrick from Crash Course Cryptozoology. He says, "Very excited." And we got my buddy Tate already giving me the info I was going to ask for. Sounds great. Thank you, good sir. We got a great show for you tonight. We've got a new friend from east of Portland, the Clackamas County area. I'll bring on in a few minutes, but wanted to say that if you stumbled upon this broadcast on YouTube, Bigfoot Society is a podcast where I interview people in the cryptozoology niche, and we talk about Bigfoot, talk about Mothman, talk about all sorts of weird stuff, but it's a lot of fun. And you can find this in podcast form if you want to listen to it later on iTunes, iHeartRadio, all that good stuff. Next week we will be having a recap episode from CryptidCon, which is happening this weekend, so I'll have a few friends on Thanksgiving week, so we will that will not be live. It'll be pre-recorded on Clubhouse, but you should join us on Clubhouse. You can find more info about that on at Bigfoot Society on Instagram. But when we return to our live schedule, next one will be 12/3, December 3rd, and we'll have Mr. Ken Gerhard on, the cryptozoologist, on there to talk about all sorts of cool stuff. So I met Ken at the Van Meter Visitor Festival, so I can't wait to talk to him live on the podcast on Bigfoot Society YouTube channel. So let's get on into it, and I'll bring on my friend, new friend, Nico, but also just want to say real quick, let's get the banner up here. Here we go. If you have a question for Nico, we definitely like having questions put in the chat so I can put those in as we go along. We'll be talking about all different things with Nico. But if you have a question, use the word question in caps so I can pick it out from the chat easily. And then I will start to put those in. All righty then. So let's go ahead and bring Nico on. Here we go. All right, Nico. Hello. How's it going?
Oh, excellent. It's going real good. How are you?
Forgot to unmute you, my friend. Oh, anyways, so Nico Spadafora from the Fossil team, and introduction for yourself. You've got this is going to be a very unique interview. You are all sorts of cool things. You are owner and lead educator of the Fossil team. You're also a tracker and a wilderness educator, and you've also got some other things going on, which we will chat about later. But let's start here. So what is the Fossil team?
That's a great question.
Because it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, so the Fossil team, it's a company that my wife and I started, where I take all of these things behind me here, which, for those of you who can't see, it's a bunch of fossils, to classrooms and platforms like this and all over, and talk about paleontology, like dinosaurs. Most of these behind me are Megafauna from the Ice Age and stuff like that. But yeah, talk about dinosaurs and teach, and it's a lot of fun.
And for those of us, for those of the listeners who might not know what the word megafauna is, do you mind? What is it when we're talking about megafauna?
Great question. Megafauna refers to large animals. So when I tend to use the term megafauna, I'm talking about like saber-toothed cats and woolly rhinos and giant ground sloths and mammoths and stuff like that. But
awesome.
Megafauna can also refer to some large animals that are alive today, like elephants and rhinos and lions and stuff like that.
That's awesome. That is awesome. How long have you guys been doing the Fossil team for?
We've been doing the Fossil team. It's been kind of light. It started as a bit of a passion project, just kind of doing it on the side to, kind of share my passion. And now we're starting to try and make it a bit bigger. And
nice.
So give or take about 2 or 3 years now.
Okay, very cool. And so you're based out of, let's say, you said east of Portland, Clackamas County region. So kind of out there in the, you could say like the Mount Hood forest area, stuff like that. And so I've been to Portland, but I haven't been out in that area yet. So we're talking like you get outside of Portland, it gets pretty wild, pretty quick, I hear. Or how is it out there?
Yeah. It does get pretty wild. The animal life out here, just the other day, we had somebody post on this little app that talks about, it's just like talking things in the neighborhood and stuff like that. And somebody had a bear in their front yard.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so, I mean, not recently, and by recently, I mean like months ago, but they're around right now. Cougar sightings were fairly recently, though.
Okay. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So I got to ask you, so you've got a multitude of fossils. I mean, for people that haven't watched the YouTube yet, if you're just on the audio podcast, what you're missing right now is Nico has two saber-tooth tiger skulls behind his right shoulder, which is pretty wild. And I was checking out your Instagram earlier, and you've got all sorts of stuff in your audience. Where you are in your office, where are you picking up these fossils from?
I get them from a number of places. First of all, there's one saber-tooth cat behind me, the smile.
Oh, snap.
The other one is a short-faced bear, Arctodus.
Oh, yeah, no way. Okay, those are, yeah, I've seen pictures of those in museums, and those are the coolest. Like, they're huge, right? Yeah. They're like your prehistoric crazy bears.
Definitely, when they stand up, they give Sasquatch a run for its money. So,
how tall are they? How tall are they when they're standing up? Well, of course, they're not around anymore. Thank goodness.
Right. They're about, if I remember correctly off the top of my head, like 12 feet tall when they're standing up on their hind legs. They're big.
Wow.
So yeah, if we're thinking, the normal Sasquatch is around 8-9 feet tall.
That's what. Yeah, totally. Do you guys get? This is kind of me just remembering a story I heard once. Do you guys get people out there that are like, dude, I totally saw a prehistoric cave bear, or I saw like? Do you ever run into that stuff?
I haven't. No,
okay, good.
Nobody's talked to me about that, actually. Surprisingly, but I have heard a lot of the cryptid dinosaur prehistoric animal types.
Oh snap! Yeah. For like sure.
For example.
Yeah, or like, do you guys have a lot of Thunderbird sightings out there in the PNW?
So. I'm also not keeping an eye out for them. So
that's true. That's true.
Maybe.
They could be right behind your shoulder. You never know. I like the fossil. So the fossil team, also, you're doing stuff over Zoom, right?
Well, we're trying. So
you're trying to. Okay.
Right now, because fossil team was just kind of like, if you want me to come out, like, just send me a message. Like before, right now we're working on like a website and Zoom integration, and like right now it's still the if you want classes, you got to reach out, and like I'll post something every once in a while that fits in with my schedule right now, because I'm still working other places while I'm trying to get fossil team up.
Totally.
But in the near future, there will definitely be classes that will be over Zoom and
nice
in person and stuff.
What is the favorite fossil that you have? Yeah, that's tough, isn't it?
That's a horrible question to ask to a dinosaur person.
Exactly.
I got some cool stuff. I also never answered your question on where I get them. We got sidetracked.
Well, funny you should say that, because I think there's a guy who was trying to answer it in the chat. William's like, me.
Oh yeah.
And William says, I fund his addiction. Haha. So there's probably a story there, but
Will's my best friend. So
that's awesome. Yeah. That's cool.
But yeah, I get them from a number of places. One of the places is this really cool place called Bone Clones. And they're actually a good one to bring up because they sell the Grover Krantz
Oh, really?
replica.
Oh,
So
nice.
reconstruction. So Bone Clones is one place. Another place is this place called Gaston Design. I recently purchased a Stegosaurus plate from them, and it's unfortunately
cool.
not in the camera, but I'm looking at it right now. So
I've seen a picture of that, and it is massive.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's very cool. I'm gonna guess that you look a little bit younger than me, but I'm gonna guess that there was a certain did a certain movie kind of kick off your love for this, or what was it that kicked off the love for the fossils?
There's definitely a movie.
Okay.
And I know Tate is somewhere in there. I think I saw him comment on it too. It may or may not have something to do with Jeff Goldblum and you know that crew.
That's awesome. Dude, yeah. So the whole Jurassic Park thing, I mean, and it's crazy, like I have a 6-year-old and he is bonkers into dinosaurs still, like crazy. So much so, like it was like he was 2 or 3 years old and he's like saying paleontologist and saying he wants to be a paleontologist, and like he's totally going for it. So every day, everything he learns at school is him working towards being a paleontologist someday. But we will see. We'll see. You also, and I think this is interesting because I was doing a little research on you. And so you're a tracker. Can you tell me more about like what does it mean to be a tracker?
Yeah. So tracking is kind of the layman's term is it's looking at an animal track and being like, oh, what is that? Like, but there's much more to it. It's basically looking at the land and seeing the story that the animal's leaving behind. It's much more than like looking at a paw print in the ground and being like, oh, that's a bear. It's like following those tracks and finding out like where that bear went, what that bear was doing, where that bear is going, and so on and so forth. And I mean, I guess the tracking is kind of what got me into the Bigfoot stuff.
Really?
A little bit, yeah. Among other things, but yeah.
So my father, for a long time, and I want to say he still does a lot of this. He was a naturalist, and so he had a lot of like really interesting books in his office I would read as a little kid. One of them was the Tracker. I believe it was the Tracker by Tom Brown.
Oh yeah.
It's a really interesting book because it's got great stories in it about how he used to get treated by crazy feral dogs in the Pine Barrens in New Jersey, but also like it really goes into detail about like what it is to track, the stories you can get through tracking, and how you can get like really good at it and see stuff that is like the normal person would not see. So like I totally get it that like you can tell a story through tracks when you get really, really good at it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the book you're referring to, The Tracker by Tom Brown Jr. Fantastic book. No, Tom Brown Jr.'s son, Tom
cool.
Brown III, he's a good friend of mine.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, that's cool. Because like, man, I want to say in one of the books, like Tom Brown Jr. becomes like, he goes all over the place looking for people that are missing and stuff like that. So very, very cool. The wilderness educator portion, how does that work into things?
So that's my main job right now.
Oh, okay.
I go out in the woods with a group of usually kids, and I drive the bus out, and we get out in the woods and we go and survive without dying, because I still got to send home. Right? No, I'd be bad at my job if I was dead. So, but we go out, we build fires, we build shelters, and of course we track. That's like kind of my favorite thing to do out there with them, and yeah.
So, okay, so this is interesting. So you're taking a group probably. So you've got a group of kids. You're teaching survival stuff. Is this in that Mount Hood Clackamas region?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
Have you?
So
Oh boy.
it's funny because
Yeah.
the thing that got me into Bigfoot happened while teaching.
I was working my way towards that. I'm very interested to hear that story. Go ahead.
Oh, start now?
Yeah, why not? Go ahead.
Okay, sure.
All right.
Okay. So this happened right before COVID hit.
Okay.
And I was teaching a group. The way our camps are structured, there's our summer camps, which are like week-long camps, and then we have spring break and all the break camps. But then in between, we have all the year-round stuff, so like homeschool classes and apprenticeships and stuff like that. And this was a homeschool class that I had been teaching all year. There's a lot of like everything's connected things going on here, which is really interesting.
Okay.
This class, I think it was like the week before or 2 weeks before this happened, I actually took this group of kids to the North American Bigfoot Center.
Nice.
Because I was like, why not? We're driving past it. So
Yep.
So we were out there and we were doing trail cameras. We had been using trail cameras all year, and we had a specific spot that we were going to, and we were putting the cameras, and we check them once a month, and we had a ritual that we do every time we go in the same way, out the same way, and we started to notice over the month or two before that that the animals were starting to kind of move out of the area. Before we were getting lots of bobcat and elk and deer and coyotes and stuff like that. And this specific spot, the animals were moving out of. And we figured it was because other classes were kind of starting to figure out where I put that spot, and we're going there to track because we put it in the middle of this area, and it had like this sand pit basically in the middle of the area, and so it left great tracks. And so we'd try to, before we looked at the pictures, we'd try to see what tracks were there, and then match them up with pictures, right? But so this specific month there was like no pictures, and so we decided, all right, next week let's go pick a different spot, let's go track and see if we can find a more active spot, right? And so we decided to go all the way out to the other side of this location. It's a 300-acre property.
Oh, wow.
And most people don't go to one side of it because it takes all day to walk there. And so we decided to go, and the kids were like super into it, and they were like, let's just get to the other side and put the camera, and that'll be our day. And so that's what we did. We started walking out there. I was with my work partner, which in another podcast, I told this story. And are
you talking about the forest floor?
Yes, the forest floor.
Yeah.
I still don't know if he'd be okay with me telling his name, so I'm going to call him Jeff, like I did in that one.
Hey, sidebar, if you want to hear another one that Nico has been in, you have to join the Forest Floor Patreon and support a really cool this stuff that Emily is doing is really awesome. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, she's awesome.
Yeah.
You should definitely look into it if you haven't.
Totally.
So anyways, we're leading the group. And we, we're hanging out in this area over there for like lunch and stuff. And then we start walking into this area we call the Willows. And there's kind of like this threshold, right? So like the Willows, nobody goes into the Willows because it's just like thick and there's tons of trees falling over because funny enough, it's made out of willow, or we call it the Willows, and there's some willows, but it's mainly alder and cottonwood. Okay. Because this area is a dried out lake bed, like they fall over all the time. And so it's kind of a dangerous place to be, especially when it's windy. And so that's why we're putting the cameras in there, because that's where all the animals were. They were avoiding the people. And so we walked basically around it, and we're kind of walking back into it because we're following this trail that kind of, was pretty active. A lot of elk sign. And there's this like threshold as you're walking into it, and as I'm about to walk into it, I get this like overwhelming feeling of being watched.
Oh wow.
And like it stopped me in my tracks. And this is a feeling I felt before, but not to this like power. Like, but what I was telling Emily, and well, I'll tell you now, prior to doing all the stuff I do now, I was an intern at the zoo. And
oh, cool. Okay. Nice.
Tons of different animals. Like I've had lions in my face.
Oh man.
So I've like elephants, lions, rhinos, polar bears. Like I've worked with tons of predators. I mean, elephants and rhinos aren't predators, but they growl. So
right.
But I got this feeling, and specifically out in this area, I was like, all right, there's cougars and bears. Like I've run into those before, but like this is a little weird, right? And the kids just kind of didn't care. They just kept walking. They didn't feel it, weirdly enough. But then Jeff, he comes up behind me and he's like, hey dude, what's wrong? Right. And I'm like, nothing. Right. And we walk in, right. And we're following this trail. It's a very clear people trail, because there's neighbors, and the neighbors sometimes walk the area, and some of them have horses and tear up the trails. But
okay.
We're walking down this trail, and I feel like I'm being watched still this whole time. And I'm looking around. I'm just like, what's going on? And we come to this part where this animal trail kind of crosses the people trail. And right before I walk over it, to my right, I hear a growl. Like this deep guttural growl. It's like a and
oh man,
stopped me in my tracks again. And I was like, what? Like, and we're going through like I'm just like flipping through the pages trying to figure out what this thing is, like connecting it with all of the animals I've worked with and that I know that are out there. And I'm like, what made this growl? And kids just keep walking again. They walk right past us. They're comfortable in the woods. And so they just kept going. We're talking, and Jeff comes up behind me again, and he's like, dude, this is sick. Doesn't stop. What's wrong? And this time I tell him, like, all right, last back there, I felt like I was being watched. I just heard his growl, dude. And he goes, oh, cool. Like, sweet. Let's listen. Right. And so like, I do this thing where I cup my ears.
Yeah, totally.
Try and focus the sound that's in front of me. And I'm trying to listen for anything moving, anything, like breathe, any sound, trying to pinpoint it. And Jeff, he's just kind of standing there with his arms crossed, and he starts moving, hearing something move behind us.
Oh no.
Which I didn't catch because I was so hyper focused on what was in front of me.
Right.
And so he tells me, he's like, dude, I'm hearing something behind us. And he walks over. I'm really bad with distance, but he walks some like 10 yards away, I guess, maybe. And is listening over there. And I'm looking at the kids. The kids have now figured out that we're stopped and we're not paying attention to them. And we're normally goofy and bouncing all around because,
right.
And we're being all serious, and they're starting to freak out now. Because this was like the age range too, like with this specific homeschool class, it was a smaller day. So normally we split them up into age groups or grades because they're homeschool. But,
right.
But this was just like a mixed group. And so there were some like kindergartners, and there was fifth graders, and all in between. And these kids stop, and they're freaking out. They're like, what's going on? What's going on? And I kind of look at him with this like dead face, and just like, shh.
Oh boy. Yeah. And then they're like, uh-oh.
Yeah. They're like, we know.
Yeah.
Shut up. Like something's going down. And at this point, I'm like turning towards Jeff, and I'm getting ready to walk towards him. And that's when I hear the growl again. But the growl this time was a tiny bit different. It was a
oh man.
And I went, no way. That sounded like an ape.
I was gonna ask you if it reminded you of anything from the zoo. Wow.
Yeah. Sounded like an ape.
Oh
and
man.
I was like, we're in Oregon. Like,
yeah.
What else could that be? And so yeah, to kind of speed the story along, like I went over and told Jeff about it, and the kids were freaking out again, and none of the kids were hearing this, which is still so odd to me. But then Jeff and I are trying to figure out what to do, like, because we were going to kind of continue going, because this area is like a big circle or big square, really.
Okay.
And we were going to kind of do a whole loop around it. And now we were like, okay, things are kind of happening here. Do we keep going because like we're comfortable in the woods, or like if this is what we might think it is, like we don't know what they're going to do. So do we go back? Like, and then one of the kids walks up and he's like, we should put our trail camera here. And I'm like we're both like, yeah, that's a great idea. But like I'm still kind of in panic mode, right? I'm like, I gotta do something, like something's gonna happen. Like,
right, gotta keep the kids safe. Yeah.
And so I walk up to the first tree I see, which in the Willows there's a lot of trees, but the closest one, I should say, the closest tree. I walk up to it, and the camera I had is one of those cameras where it's not like bungee cords to hold it up or anything. It's a strap that you got to tighten. And so I put the camera up on the tree. I put the strap around it, and I start tightening it. And to tighten it all the way, I have to go around the tree. And so I go around to the other side of the tree, and now I'm facing Jeff and this one kid. And the one kid, he happens to be my boss's kid. And so he basically lives on this property. And so he wasn't freaking out at all. He's just kind of like looking around and picking his nose, like doing whatever.
Yep.
But Jeff is watching me. And I come around to the side of the tree. I start tightening it, and I look at Jeff, and his eyes like just explode out of his head. Oh no, so big. And I'm like, oh God, I missed something.
Yeah.
Right. And I walk back over to him after finishing the camera, and I go, dude, what's wrong? And he goes, dude, when you turned around on the path behind you, I saw something walk from one side of it to the other.
Oh,
it was really tall,
no
and not
way.
very wide. Like I don't know. It's just like this dark shape, and I was like, what? Yeah, we ended up moving the camera before we walked out of the area, because I realized there was like like a triangle of trails going around that specific tree. So I would have gotten the one in front of it, but everything else behind it I would have missed. So we moved it to a tree that kind of got all of the animal trails. And then we left. And I ended up going back like as we got out of the Willows to kind of go see. And by the time I got back to that area, the feeling was gone. I didn't feel anything. I didn't find anything. And I ended up bringing it to Cliff and Connor at the museum, and and being like, it's like, what happened? Like, can you? And they ended up coming out and looking, and they were pointing things out, like, oh yeah, when that thing moved, like it was moving from to a safer spot with a wall, the castle and moating, and all that, and that growl is this. And did you see any tree twists? And at the time, I was like, I didn't know any of this, because like, I mean, I've always kind of believed in the Bigfoot thing, but I was always like, it's probably a rare animal. It's never going to happen to me. And here we are. So, yeah, now I work at the museum.
Right. Which that's the next kind of trail to follow in the conversation. So you did kind of say though, so it sounded like you believed in Bigfoot a bit before the situation happened. Mm-hmm. But after you had this experience happen, how did that affect your feeling towards Bigfoot? Just like really cement it, or make you more curious, or what kind of things happened because of that?
Well, that one was definitely more curious, because I still haven't really seen one. We tracked one, and we may have seen some eye shine when I brought them back for an investigation to this area. But I mean, I definitely am like, I know they're real, but like, because it's not a belief, right? It's
right.
Because if you believe in something, that implies that you're never going to see it, right? But like, you know, as Connor says all the time, I got that one from him.
That's funny. So that kind of, I am another thing I'll throw out to the listeners is the North American Bigfoot Center is awesome. And if you want to support them and make sure that their mission continues, you can do so by going to their Patreon and seeing some amazing videos that are some of the best quality Bigfoot videos you'll ever see, to be honest. I was watching some of those because I do support myself. And I was like, oh, who's this guy? And I was like, oh man, this guy would be cool to talk to because I'm sure he has a story. Because it's like you come up in one of the videos where it's like, I think I can get away with saying like it's a day in the life of the store. And then it's like, and this is Nico. And I'm like, yeah, but what's Nico's story? I think there's something cool there. So I was like, I gotta talk to him. Because yeah, there's the community in Bigfoot and cryptids. Once you find someone who hasn't really been around on too many shows, like that's something special. So I'm glad I get to chat with you. Nico, walk me through, like, how does it happen that like you're going, you have this encounter, then you go into the museum and you're like, hey guys, I'm Nico. I think I had this thing. Can we hang out? And I work here. Like, how does that all transpire?
Yeah. So, I ended up like becoming friends with everybody there.
Cool.
After this, because one, I was obnoxious and kept coming in because I thought it was
Nice.
And Cliff also lives really close to where this area, this encounter occurred.
Oh, rockin'. Okay.
Yeah. And
nice.
So,
yeah, that's cool.
It's also really close to where I lived. So or live. So it was like easy access as opposed to a lot of the other places that people were going, and we've been there definitely more than 2 or 3 times at this point. But yeah, there was a day where I came in and like just say hi because I was driving by,
right,
and see if there was anything new. And Melissa had brought up like, hey, we
awesome.
We might need some extra help on weekends because you know Cliff's is always going places. And,
oh, totally, yeah.
And so they're like, yeah, we might need some extra help if you're interested. And I was like, yeah, I could use the extra cash and get more bones and
totally.
And so I talked to them and I started working with them. So yeah, so they've I hope I've been able to help them. They haven't fired me yet, but
hey, all right.
Yeah, but it's definitely helped Fossil Team grow a lot too, because I put all that money towards Fossil Team and like.
Oh, that's so cool that like that can support something equally as cool. And I would think the Venn diagram kind of overlaps people that dig fossils and people that dig Bigfoot. So
absolutely,
I can see that.
It's been an interesting combination because if you had asked me like 2 years ago, I haven't even been working there for a year yet, but like you asked me 2 years ago, like if Bigfoot was something that was going to help Fossil Team grow, like I don't know. So
life is weird like that, who knows? Yeah.
Let's
get a few audience questions in here. We'll take a break from our chat for a bit, and then we'll swing back to some more questions there. So let's just rip the Band-Aid off and bring out a Tate question. I know he's a fan of Jurassic Park. We already talked about that, JP. But is he a fan of my staple drink, PBR? Oh man, Tate. How do you feel about PBR?
Tate, I hate to break it to you, I'm not a big drinker.
Oh man, well that's okay.
Yeah, I'm not super into that. I do partake every once in a while, but
yeah,
I'm more of a cider fan myself.
Oh yeah, me too. But I can't drink anymore because of health issues. But
yeah.
I can still say I enjoy it in the past.
I mean, you can still enjoy it and be dying, right? Like,
yeah, it's pretty much a trade-off. I'm like, so can I do this? And he's like, well, it all comes down to what you feel is better. And I'm like, are you literally saying doing this versus living more? I'm like, I think I'll choose living more. But let's my buddy Carrick from Crash Course Cryptozoology. Question: when you think of cryptid cases like the Mokele Bembe, what comes to mind in terms of what we know about dinosaurs in the fossil record?
So what I think you're asking is there like more evidence of dinosaurs in these spaces, right? There's a lot of, supposed cryptids that are dinosaur-like in Africa. I used to teach a cryptid class online for
Oh, cool.
The same tracking thing, because it was just like, yeah, this will be fun. Why not? And we talked about a lot of those. Basically, from what I know about dinosaurs and all of that, none of these cryptids are dinosaurs. I'm not saying they're not real, but they're definitely not dinosaurs. The only dinosaurs alive today are birds. So the avian dinosaurs are maybe past the extinction, but all non-avian dinosaurs, so sauropods, theropods like T-Rex and Spinosaurus and all that, and all of the dinosaurs that couldn't fly died out at the end of the Cretaceous period. So there's definitely no dinosaurs alive today.
Okay. So I'm going to throw a follow-up into there. So when we have all these reports of things like the Mokele Mbembe, what is your thoughts about what that actually might be, or like maybe just a legend of the people over there, or
I don't know,
who knows, right? Yeah, who knows?
In the very little research I did for the one class where I talked about it 5 minutes.
Sure. Gotcha. Yep.
I heard a lot about misidentification. Like I know Mokele and Mbembe is supposed to look like a sauropod, right? One of the long-necked dinosaurs. But I don't know. Like I guess a long neck could look like an elephant trunk. Like
that's true.
I did see a really interesting picture that makes me, like, because it was talking about supposed Mokele tracks. And I saw those tracks. And I mean, I haven't gone tracking in Africa.
Sure.
Those definitely aren't elephant or hippo tracks. So
interesting.
That makes me scratch my head a little bit, but I don't know.
And who's to say that it potentially could be an undiscovered animal?
Right.
There's that as well, because there are animals that are being discovered every year, and even sea creatures as well. Who's to say there's a portion of Africa where not a lot of people go into the Congo? There could be something in there that is not a dinosaur or prehistoric creature, but a new animal. You never know.
Absolutely. And on that note, with the fossil record, that goes into the fact that a lot of animals that live in jungle environments don't fossilize very well.
Oh.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Soil tends to be very acidic.
Okay.
So bones, between soil acidity and rodents and other animals that actually eat bones for the calcium, bones deteriorate really, really fast in those environments. Okay. So that's part of the reason we don't see Sasquatch bones. In fact, Connor's really good at this fact, but like I think the first chimpanzee fossils were found like 5 years ago. I can't remember. Oh,
that I have never heard that fact. That's a really cool fact, though. I like that.
Yeah, and we still don't have a fossil record for gorillas or something like that. That one I don't know.
Wow.
For sure, but I believe that's what I've heard. And so yeah, it's an interesting fact there. And then on top of that, usually when an animal dies, if it's a prey animal, so we'll stay here in Oregon for a second.
Okay.
If it's a prey animal like a deer or a raccoon or something that gets eaten a lot, you're going to find more bones from those animals because things are killing them and eating them where they killed them, right?
Sure.
But a predator, like a cougar or a bear or Sasquatch, they're going to move off. If they start not feeling good because they're dying, they don't know that they're dying. They're going to move off and hide and try to get better, and then they die where they were hidden. And then if anything finds them, probably rodents and stuff, they're going to, eat the bones, and then soil acidity. And so that's like, I've been in like teaching out in the woods 8 years now, and I have never found a predator bone.
Wow. That's wild. That's cool though.
Mm-hmm. Not to say it doesn't happen, but
yeah, but it does definitely it's a lot of good stuff to throw at a person who has the question like, okay, where's all those Sasquatch bones? You know,
We have a display for that in the museum.
it is on my list to go visit the museum one day. I've seen a lot of it in pictures, but I mean, it's nothing like. I feel like you have to actually go to the place to really get it, and that's with any museum or
Absolutely. You got to come see Murphy in person
for sure. Emily from, of course, the Forest Floor says, "Hey Nico, what's your favorite dinosaur?" Hey, that's a pretty good question.
Hey, great question. So I'm going to give you the answer I give everybody who asks me that question.
Nice.
I have so many dinosaurs that I appreciate for many different ways. And I tend to go through dinosaurs like I'll have like a phase, like, oh, I'm really into therizinosaurs right now. Those are the guys with the super big finger claws. And, I'm really into raptors right now. But saying that, there is a T-Rex tattooed on my arm. So
solid, dude.
T-Rex necklace, and my wedding ring is made out of T-Rex bone. So I think it's a T-Rex.
Way. I didn't know that was a possibility. You could make a ring out of bone.
Special order.
Nice, dude.
Yeah. I also like to say that T-Rex is my favorite, not because, everybody likes T-Rex and everybody knows T-Rex, but like I have put tons and tons of hours into studying T-Rex. And so it's more just like I like T-Rex because of what T-Rex was, not because of what T-Rex is, if that makes sense.
Explain to me that a little bit more, what T-Rex was.
Okay. Yeah. So
unless that's a super can of worms, isn't it? If for someone who really loves T-Rex. But
yeah, how long you want to go on this podcast?
I mean, I don't know if you got a summary, or we could go for it or whatever. But
okay, I'll give you a summary. When you come visit the museum, I'll give you the full spiel.
Nice. Awesome.
So T-Rex, if you look at a T-Rex, let me rephrase it. I like T-Rex because of paleontology, not because of Jurassic Park.
That makes more sense now.
That's a better way to put it.
Yep.
T-Rex is an incredible looking dinosaur. It is like, you look at that and you're like, that's cool, right? Mm-hmm. Like, even if people aren't like super into dinosaurs, they know what a T-Rex is. But I like T-Rex because of all of the things that go into making it the absolute perfect predator. It is an evolutionary success story, and that's not something you hear a lot about T-Rex because, like, little arms and stuff like that.
Right. But, okay. They can't clap, meet the Robinsons. But
exactly. Well, T-Rex was it, like, it didn't need its arms because everything else about it was incredible. Like, its sense of smell was phenomenal. Its eyesight, like the whole T-Rex visual acuity thing, like, no, it could see you perfectly fine. Because if it couldn't see you, it'd be a horrible predator. And there's this theory that comes around every once in a while, makes the rounds, that T-Rex was a scavenger, and it was like a power scavenger, and it'd come up and it'd muscle things off and eat the prey, and that's absolutely not true. Like, there is fossil evidence of T-Rex hunting animals. One of my favorite ones is this hadrosaur, a duck-billed dinosaur called Edmontosaurus. And Edmontosaurus was one of T-Rex's favorite things to eat. There's a fossil of one found where the two of the tail vertebrae have fused together. And in the middle of it, there is a T-Rex tooth.
Whoa.
Which shows that this dinosaur was attacked by a T-Rex and lived. So that's not scavenging, that's direct predation. So.
Yeah, totally. Oh, that's wild. I like that.
So that's part of the reason. That's 1% of the reason why I like T-Rex.
Wasn't there something going around too, where it's like people were imagining that like a T-Rex had wings, and like that's like it's time this is a stupid thing, I don't know. But they were like drawing like the puny arms as wings. It's just a joke, right?
Well, so we don't know.
Okay, yeah. Sure.
T-Rex probably had feathers.
Sure.
Did it have flight feathers? Absolutely not. Feathers didn't evolve for flight, actually. Feathers evolved for probably warmth and display. And, you know, the dinosaurs that eventually did learn how to fly, probably their ancestors were like, oh man, my wings are, my arms are like dragging a little bit. And I like that. I don't know why. Like, and then eventually they can fly. But, yeah, the whole T-Rex, like, I think there's this picture that some artist did where it shows the T-Rex covered in feathers, and it kind of looks like a giant sparrow with sharp teeth. And, that one's really funny.
I gotta look that up.
Yeah. It'll probably come up if you just type in like T-Rex with feathers or something.
Nice.
Yeah, there's T-Rex relatives that came before T-Rex that were covered in feathers. So T-Rex probably had feathers.
Oh, wild.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Questions are all over the place, but let's bring them on. So we got friend Connor Anderson saying, hey, when was the first time you realized that you and I were soulmates? Kind of a little, maybe a little cheeky trolly question, but hey, Connor's a cool dude, so I'm going to let him ask it.
The first time I laid eyes on you, Connor.
It makes sense. It totally makes sense. All right.
I saw that you looked exactly like me. I was like, I like this guy.
Connor's a good dude for sure. Carrick's got another good question here, and this is actually kind of it also could tie into something I was going to ask you later. But what does Nico think of Bigfoot in terms of what we know about North American megafauna? That's such a wild question, dude. I love it.
And I have the perfect, maybe not the perfect, but a great answer for it because I've been thinking about that a lot.
Nice.
So, a lot of animals crossed over into North America during the Ice Age from the land bridge, right? The Bering Strait. Mm-hmm. A lot of animals that originated in Asia came over to North America and vice versa. So like a good example is like camels, which are no longer alive in North America, originated in North America. And then rhinos and sloths and all that came over from, and of course mammoths came over from Asia. Lions, bear, well, I think bears. Yeah. So if you look at North America today, according to science, there's no apes in North America. There's no monkeys in North America. However, there's monkeys in South America. So Bigfoot probably crossed over the land bridge with the Ice Age animals and populated North America.
Wild.
Unless you go with Emily's theory, and they might have, well, maybe not her exact theory, but a theory she had that they are possibly their own things that live in North America and originate in North America, making them not apes. But yeah, it's that, like, that is an awesome question, and
it is.
We won't know the answer to it until we find fossils, which probably will never happen. But that is also a good point. So if we look at hominid and hominoid and all that, all of the evolution, with the evolution of like Australopithecines and stuff like that, the upright posture that we have and that Australopithecines had and all of their ancestors evolved because they lived in savanna environments. The upright posture of also they could literally see over the tall grass and be like, "Oh, there's a lion over there."
Yeah,
like,
right.
So, Sasquatch, its ancestors probably evolved in a savanna-like environment as well. So, saying that, it's entirely possible that we might find an ancestor or might have already found an ancestor, which is an interesting thought.
That is very interesting. The blunter version of a question in that family that I usually ask is, so explain to me what you think Bigfoot is.
I have no idea.
Fair enough.
And I say that because I'm looking at it as a paleontology aspect and science like that. Like, we don't have one. We don't have a fossil record of them, so we don't know what they are. All of the evidence points to them being apes. They're probably some kind of ape, and there's probably an ape ancestor out there. But do I know what it is? I don't know.
All right, hey, that's fair enough. I'll take it. Yeah, that question will get all sorts of interesting answers. So that's all right. So you were talking about you worked in a zoo in the past, and you know what apes. Have you noticed? I don't know if you keep up to date with like the Olympic project in like the Olympic Peninsula. Have you ever, or has there ever been any kind of like nest type things found in the or any, you know what I'm trying to get at? Like, has anything like that ever been found in your area, the Mount Hood Clackamas region? Or
I don't know.
I don't think I've seen it or read anything, but just kind of something that came to mind real quick.
I haven't seen about anything about that either. I think the Olympic Project Nest thing is awesome.
Yeah.
And definitely points towards super primate behavior. But I can't think of any instances of it being found here in Oregon or specifically in my area even.
Fair enough.
So I know Clackamas County is a hotspot for them though. There's a
for
lot
Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, like,
so
yeah, Oregon Bigfoot Highway, one of the best, Bigfoot books is just like, it's like, I can't imagine being a Bigfoot researcher in that area and not knowing that book exists and then like finding out about it like 10 years into your research and be like, what in the world? Where it was all right here. Oh, crazy stuff. William asks, hey, Nico should talk about his theory on woodnucks. I think he should too. That sounds interesting.
Okay. So this kind of goes with a couple of stories that we heard at the museum and a weird encounter that happened after my sighting I call it a sighting. It's not a sighting. Encounter. There we go. Something that happened when I took Connor and that crew out there to kind of do a night investigation. What happened with Connor and I and the rest of that crew, Cliff wasn't there for this one. We were kind of walking around and we ran into a group of elk and they stampeded away from us and we decided to follow them, which was really cool because we lost them. And so it was like, okay, we were following this very clear stampeding elk trail that we clearly saw the elk and they disappeared. So if we could lose 20 elk in the woods,
oh wow,
probably lose one Sasquatch. But
yeah.
Later we had a fire at this place and we were walking around the center road because we drive buses in there, so we have roads, that one road in there, and we were walking around the road just kind of doing a lap, and we heard something moving. And we decided to kind of walk around to see if we can get a thermal camera of it. And as we were approaching the sound, we heard a wood knock by this area that we call, or I shouldn't say this area, by this big rock we call Bear Rock because we thought it was a bear. And then we shined a light on it and it was a rock. But and we heard this wood knock and, we walked away and things may or may not have happened after that. And then we got this other story that this guy was up actually near my house. And he heard this talking in the woods. And then there's this big bang, bang, and it stopped.
Whoa.
And so I kind of started thinking, what if wood knocks are warnings that danger, or maybe even people. I doubt that it's just people, but I mean, I don't know. So it's a warning, hey, shut up, there's people coming.
Yeah.
And so we've kind of stopped doing, or at least I have. I know other people have kind of done them every once in a while, but I've kind of stopped doing wood knocks when I go out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you're thinking, hey, why would I do something that's going to warn the Sasquatch away and say, okay, time to head out? We don't want that. So follow up for that. So what are you doing a certain other thing then if you're staying away from the wood knocks?
Yeah, I mean we do the calls and stuff like that
Okay.
too. The Ohio howls and the whoops and all that. But since Emily's joined us out here, we've been
Mhm.
doing a lot more of just like making weird noises that are interesting. So
Nice.
like talking to each other. Like I brought my whip out a couple of times, and although we stopped doing the whip because, or at least I think I should stop doing the whip because it might sound like a wood knock to people, but also
Yeah.
sounds like a gunshot, which could be interesting to them.
That's true.
But yeah, like talking, shouting. Like the other night we were at one of the museum's locations we call the Blueberry Bog,
Oh,
and
yeah.
across the bog, I just shouted like, "Hey, you guys!" and like, yeah,
Totally, yeah. The little Goonies in there.
yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Did he yell nothing back though?
No, he wasn't there.
Okay. Next time.
He was
Next
somewhere.
time. That's awesome. Oh man, there's a lot of interesting stuff in it. William says, "Hey, did you hear about the cryptid salamander in the US that's no longer a cryptid?" That sounds kind of interesting.
I've
If
heard
not,
about the cryptid salamander because Will and I were talking about it. Yeah, he's the salamander guy. I love him for it.
oh, nice. Okay, cool.
And that among other things. But I didn't hear about it being a cryptid. So Will, you're gonna have to call me after this and tell me about that.
Well, there you go. Something to chat about. Connor says, hey, yeah, okay. So he's saying, yes, there have been nest-like things found in Oregon, just not as well documented as the OP. Good to know. Thanks, Connor. Connor is definitely, he's got a wealth of knowledge and fun. I was able to talk to him one time. He's a good dude. Good dude. Yeah, big time, which is a huge compliment. I feel so. A lot of people will say Bigfoot nerds and like, oh, you Bigfoot nerds doing podcasts, whatever. I feel like that's a huge compliment,
It is.
you know, which I think you do as well too.
Yeah, I tell people I like to call my students nerds, and when they're like, "Hey," I'm like, "What? That was a compliment." Because being a nerd means you're passionate about something. So.
Exactly, totally. Have you ever experienced? So you're in the woods a lot. You're doing all sorts of survival stuff. Oh, here's a good one. Actually, I'm gonna stop that one. If you're a survival guy, what are your thoughts about stick structures? Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people out there that like them. And
Okay.
Like, oh my gosh, but I mean, I don't know. They're probably people. I go out in the woods and build things with sticks because I'm building shelters all the time. So
like, right, I grew up at a summer camp, and we would, in our outdoor skills week, we would build stuff in the woods that would make a Bigfoot researcher be like, "Holy mackerel!" Like these are like 12-year-olds. I'm not like talking bad about the stick structure, Bigfoot in community. I'm just saying it's a thing.
So, yes. I've had plenty of people ask me about, or not ask me, but tell me about stick structures.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Until somebody comes up to me and shows me a picture of a Sasquatch putting a tree into a stick structure.
Yeah, fair enough.
People.
Fair enough.
I mean, that's what I do. So,
of course, Portland, we're saying the big thing is keep Portland weird, right? That's the thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. So, I avoid Portland like the plague. So
fair enough.
Mainly because I'm just not a city guy. But anyway.
But Oregon has a lot of crazy stuff going on. Mm-hmm. In your time being out in the woods, wilderness survival, tracking, all that stuff, have you ever experienced anything else weird in that Mount Hood region? Any weird stories or like, that's nothing out of the ordinary besides the Sasquatch stuff?
I don't know. I mean, so I brought up to Connor the other day at the museum and Cliff and all that a long time ago when me and my wife were dating, we went on a camping trip in this one of our favorite spots, and there's like a river that goes through, and it was the middle of the night, and I woke up because it's camping. And I was up, and I was trying to go back to sleep, and I heard this like woo sound, like
oh, weird.
And at the time I was like, oh, it was kayaking at night, like that's weird. And I mean, could have been somebody kayaking at night because Portland's weird, but also I don't know, kind of matches up with the Sasquatch thing.
True.
In terms of other things, I mean, there's a lot of weird sounds you hear in the woods, but I mean, I tend to try and not think Sasquatch or anything weird, because I mean, at least up until recently, I was like, I know what's out there. Like deer, elk and deer make really weird sounds.
Elk do, definitely.
Yeah. Oh man, I forgot to tell you about the after part of the encounter story.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Down in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Like a week or two later after that happened, COVID hit and shut everything down. And because I live out by the spot, I texted all the parents for this homeschool class. I was like, hey, I'm going to go check the camera. I drove out there and I was by myself, and I walked out to the camera and I heard this blood curdling scream.
Whoa.
Like never heard anything like it before. And probably the one and only time that I got scared out of the woods. Like I ran out of there being like, what the, like, so I ran out of the woods, and I got on, social media, and then I went to all my survival people and tracker people and animal people. And I was like, hey, I heard this thing. It was in this area. Tell me what you think. Like, if you know of animals that scream in the woods. And people started sending me recordings and telling me what it was. And I was like, yeah, but I've heard all those things. And then, I brought somebody else out there, or I shouldn't say I brought somebody else out there. I went back a week later because I didn't get the camera that day. Went back a week later after building the courage back up. And when I got out there was somebody else out there who definitely had a Sasquatch encounter out there.
Wow.
But it's not my story to share, but
fair enough.
They were out there, and I told them about everything that happened, and they were like, dude, you're full of it. Like, you're just jealous because you heard of mine and you like Bigfoot. And I was like, no. And I brought him out to the spot where it happened. And when we got to the camera, the scream happened again.
No way.
Yeah.
Reproducible. Mm-hmm. Holy mackerel. Did you get a recording of it?
No. Because at the time I wasn't like,
right. Yeah.
I was
totally. Yeah.
Out there because I was out there. So
yeah, makes sense. Yep.
Yeah. But,
wow.
We on the other side, there's this big wall of trees that are all dug firs next to the willows. And on the other side is the road, and there's a farm on the other side of the road. And the farm has cows and horses. And this sounded very pig-like, like humanish pig-like. And it was really weird. And
humanish pig-like.
And
weird. Yeah.
I mean, horses and cows don't sound like that. So, but I see Will is pointing something out to talk about other weird things.
Yeah, I was going to bring it up in a bit. Yeah.
I was Will. I'm glad you pointed it out because I was getting to that. Beautiful man. So, yeah, not a whole lot of weird things in the woods outside of Bigfoot. But I grew up in a haunted house, so.
Let's just throw it up on the screen. So there's a back and forth in the chat where Can Squatch was saying light orbs, and Williams like, I don't think so, but hey, maybe some ghost encounters. Wink, wink, and he's trying to maybe bring up a certain story there if you would like.
I definitely grew up in a haunted house.
Oh wow.
But to get onto that light orb thing real quick, we had a really funny thing happen where we were out. The story about the big wood knocks after the talking, we went out to go investigate that because it was near an area that was of interest. And we got out there, and on our way back, we were walking back in the dark, and we saw these lights through the trees, and we were like, oh my God, this isn't really happening. Because we were like, that can't happen. And here it was. And we were like,
right.
Oh my God, is it happening? Like, what is that? And we started running to the clear spot, and we got out to this cliff, and we found it was headlights. So,
oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
But it just like through the trees, it looked like it was floating and moving and doing its own thing. We were like, that is so weird. That can't be. And it definitely was not that, but it was just really funny. But yeah, ghost stuff. I mean, so there's probably, I mean, now there's maybe 3 or 4 ghosts in my parents' house, but when I was there was 2.
Context wise, is this in Oregon or
this is in Oregon? Yeah.
Okay.
My parents still live in that house, and every once in a while they'll text or call me and they'll be like, Nico, something really weird just happened. But when I was in high school and middle school and stuff, the first encounter that happened in my memory, it was in middle school. I was babysitting my siblings, and to make a long story short, because I don't want to take too much time, because I know we're definitely over an hour now. But
right.
I saw an apparition moving into my room.
Oh, weird.
And I ran down there after calling my mom, and I thought somebody was in the house, and I was taking karate at the time. And I grabbed a samurai sword.
Yes. You just slice right through the ghost, dude.
Yeah, to go confront this person. I thought I was in my room. I don't know where I was going with that, but I called my mom. I was like, Mom, there's somebody in the house. And she was like, what are you doing calling me? Call the cops. And I was like, no, it's okay. I got this. And I ran downstairs. And I kicked down the door. And of course, there was nobody in my room, right?
Oh, man.
So,
wow.
But yeah, and I checked, and I had one of those beds where it was like one of those lofted beds, and so nowhere to hide under the bed. There was like my closet was small, and the window was not, like, the screen was not bursted out or cut open or whatnot.
Nice.
But among other things in that, like I could, this is like another long conversation, like the T-Rex conversation. The T-Rex one is definitely a lot longer, but another cool thing that happened was in high school. I was sitting in my room under this lofted bed, sitting on the floor, doing the very thing that got me into survival skills, watching Survivor Man.
Nice. Yep.
I was sitting there watching Survivor Man, and I was home alone. And it was like, I don't know, 11 o'clock at night. And I'd gone to the store, and my family was out of town, and I stayed home because I didn't want to go with them. Because I was like, oh, what? House to myself? Yeah. Like, I don't need to go watch sports. But I'd bought some soda and some snacks, and I was sitting in my room, and I was like, I got off of a really, really good binge of Red Dead Redemption. But
right. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And I think it was the Alaska episode. I really remember the Alaska episode. I was sitting there, and I heard the door jiggling, or the doorknob jiggle. Classic horror movie stuff. The doorknob jiggled, and I figured my brother, because my brother was, he didn't go with them either, but he was staying at a friend's house. And I had figured like he had come home or something. And so I kind of turned towards the door, and I'm like, dude, stop. Right. And it stopped. And I was like, all right, whatever. And I went back, and almost immediately it started jiggling again. And I turned to me and my brother had short fuses with each other at that point. And so I was about to yell at him. And just before I yelled at him, I looked at the door, and that same apparition phased through the door, turned and looked at me, and then went, psh, and I was just like, man, all right, time for bed. Not fun.
It was future you as a ghost saying, be nice to your brother.
Yeah. Just wag my finger.
Yeah. Hey,
at myself. Don't do that. Don't
that's wild, dude. That's a wild story. We got a few more questions, and we'll wrap it up because we are over the hour, but I got a few more things I want to ask you if you're cool with that.
Of course.
Awesome. I like asking everyone, what do you think the top evidence for Bigfoot is? Ooh. What are they like?
I mean, I could go with the cliche answer and say, Patterson Gimlin film.
Right.
But, as a tracker, looking at all the footprint casts and learning what I have from Cliff and Connor and everybody at the museum and all that, it's just the footprint casts. like, yeah, some of them are hoaxed, but like you look at them and you see like the foot morphology, and you can see the way that feet are moving, and the I almost said sagittal crest. Mid-tarsal break. That's what I was looking
That's a really funny Bigfoot nerd joke. If you're a Bigfoot nerd, good one. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the sagittal crest is on more than just Bigfoot. They're everywhere. So, well, on a lot of mammals, I should point out.
Fair enough.
But like it's huge on the saber-toothed cat.
Oh yeah. Okay. Okay.
Absolutely
Interesting.
But yeah, so the footprint casts are probably going to be my answer. Just looking at the tracks of these things, and definitely so. You probably saw the video of the trackway that we found at the Blueberry Bog.
Yep.
That right there. Like, I mean, so there was the thing that happened at my location, and then seeing the eye shine and the wood knocks and some of the sounds we've heard, but seeing those tracks to me, my wife was with me on that, with us on that.
I want to say that there are so many things I want to bring up from that group, that Patreon, but I respect the heck out of the sanctity of that Patreon so much. I'm not. So this is like totally like you are bringing it up. So
yeah,
go ahead.
I know. I'm trying to like not give away the whole thing. I'm trying to.
If people knew what was in that, they would be like, there's stuff in there that like people don't realize what's in there. It's so good. Yeah,
the trackway. It's just
crazy.
Like, looking at that, and like I remember looking at my wife, who like was kind of like me. Like it was probably there, but she's never gonna see anything, right? I looked at her, and her eyes are just like, oh my god, like
wow,
this is real. And so just like seeing the tracks, and as a tracker, that's like that's what it is for me.
Gotcha. That's cool. That's cool. Do you have a favorite, or do you have a track, a Bigfoot track cast that you feel is like, as a tracker, you're like, oh, that is legit. Like that is my favorite.
Not really. No.
Okay.
And not because none of them are good.
Sure.
It's just because one, there's so many, and also like I don't know. I've looked at so many just other animal tracks that like I don't remember good ones. I just like look at one and go, oh yeah, that's a good one. I like that, and write it down or take a picture and then move on. Because I look at I know that the tracks that I see are not going to be the last ones. Hopefully.
Right.
But yeah, if I had to pick one though, I really like the PNW track.
Cool. That's awesome. That's awesome. Let's end with this one. So you're working at the North American Bigfoot Center in Boring, Oregon. You've probably walked through the museum tons of times, I would assume, or a few. Do you have an exhibit that is your favorite, that every time you walk through, you're like, oh, that is just so amazing. I can't help but just stop and like look at it every time.
Yeah. I got a couple.
Nice.
I mean, of course, there's Murphy. It's hard to go wrong with Murphy.
The audio animatronic Bigfoot.
Yeah. Well, he's pretty great. It's just like, every time I go in and look at him, it's just like I don't know if I want to be this close in real life. But I really like, there's a display we have on bones and why we don't find bones, which I mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, obviously I'm the bone guy. So
yeah, so that makes sense. Yep.
I really, really like a lot of the video evidence. And one of my favorite ones that we have in there is kind of a controversial one, but it's the Freeman footage.
Oh, interesting.
I really like that one. Mainly because we just like to quote it, honestly. Like every time we hear it, or like something walk by, or like we'll just be like, "Oh, there it goes!
Oh, there he is!
Oh, there he goes!"
Yeah,
I just love that for funny reasons.
It's funny.
Yeah, and like there's so many other things in there that are super cool. I was trying to pick something other than the tracks, of course. But But we've got a couple of skulls in there that are from bone clones. The Gigantopithecus skull.
Nice.
And we have a Paranthropus skull there as well. And I mean, I don't know. I get to stare at them all day because they're out front.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so that, I don't know if either of those things are related to Bigfoot or not, but I mean, they are because they're apes, but you know.
Hey, good answers. If you want to hear more about Paranthropus, you can always, listeners, you can always check out the Cliff Berkman episode I did, and he talks about that a lot. That is his, he likes talking about that. So definitely check out that episode. I think that was like way back last year or something like that. I was able to talk to Cliff, which was awesome. Yeah. So Nico, thank you so much for coming on and for chatting tonight. I would love do you mind sharing with the listeners live and the podcast listeners how people can follow you and the Fossil team, and maybe if let's say a teacher is listening to this, maybe there's a teacher that likes Bigfoot and they're like, I need to have this guy talk to my class over Zoom or whatever. Like, how does that happen?
Yeah. You can follow me on Instagram at it's the Fossil Team PDX, I think. Yeah.
I'll put it in the show notes. I'll link it in there. Yeah.
There's that. My website is hopefully launching soon for
Nice.
Fossil Team. It's fossilteam.com. And if you have any dinosaur questions or Bigfoot questions or Bigfoot questions, send to North American Bigfoot Center, because there's probably people there that will answer those better than I can. I think there's people there that can answer it.
If it can't be answered there, it can't be answered.
It can't be answered anywhere, exactly. But if you have any dinosaur questions or want to talk about Megafauna or anything like that, you can also email me at the.fossil.teampdx@gmail.com.
Nice. Awesome. Well, super fun chat. Thank you so much for coming on. Thanks to everyone that is in the chat. That there's some great questions tonight and just a fun time hanging out. If you're not subscribed to this, please subscribe to the channel. Share this video, this chat with Nico, and we'll see you next time. Fridays, 8 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. But thanks again so much for coming on, Nico, and have a good night, all.
Thank you very much.